Hi, this is Ron with my contractor's license, and today I'm going to discuss with you PSI candidate bulletins. Very important document. Basically, it is the information on what's involved with your test, where your testing locations are located, what you can and cannot take into the exam. So we'll walk through this real quick. I'll show you on my computer screen right quick so you have an idea. So we'll jump over here. So the first thing you want to do is go to psiexams.com. When you type that in, you'll see that it automatically jumps you to this, if I could spell it, jumps you to a candidate bulletin. And so from here, you want to go to government, state, click on that, pick your jurisdiction. So every state's going to have a jurisdiction. In this case, we'll do Georgia. By the way, if you're doing a NASCLA, you will find there is a NASCLA jurisdiction as well. So, but for right now, for this example, we'll use Georgia. Once you go in here, you pick what kind of license you're looking for. In this case, we're of course doing contractor. So we're going to click on that. Here, we've got our multiple choices. We're going to do the Georgia Basic Residential. All going to end up at the same place regardless. All right, so now we're starting to get some information about the test itself, the cost of the test. We have two tests involved. We have a business and law exam and we have a trade exam, cost, things of this nature. But really what we're going for is this candidate bulletin here. You'll find this on every one of PSI's candidate bulletins. So pop in here and you'll see the candidate bulletin. I'm going to jump over here. I've got one highlighted, so I'll just use this one right here for just a moment. Of course, we're dealing with Georgia in this scenario. The first thing you'll notice is theirs is eligibility in Georgia. You have to be pre-certified or pre-authorized to take their exam. You've got 1 year from the time you're approved. You can see that right here. And you've only got 2 shots at this. So if you fail once, you can only take it one more time. If you fail it twice, you can see right here there's a penalty of 1 year. So you want to make sure you're ready when you walk in there. This changes for every exam and for every state, so make sure you know what your candidate bulletin requires or states for your state. Next thing, missed appointment, canceled appointments, things like that. You've got 48 hours before your actual test date to cancel or reschedule. If you wait to get into that 48-hour period, they count it against you even if you don't show up. So going back to Georgia, if you don't show, it still counts as one of your tests. So be very careful and cautious with that. Make sure you know what you can and cannot do with that. The next thing, and by the way, PSI is hard to get in touch with, so if you know you're going to reschedule, get ahead of that. Don't wait to the last minute. 48 hours goes by real fast when you're trying to get in touch with PSI. Next thing the candidate bulletin will cover is locations of exams. In this case, these are the Georgia locations. You will find that you can take these tests in other states, like Georgia. If I was in Texas, I can still take this test. So there's testing facilities all over the country. You don't have to go to the specific state to have that one done. You can do an out-of-state exam. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to give PSI a call or us a call. We can help you with that. Next thing, let's talk about security procedures. Basically what PSI is pointing out here is what you can and cannot take into the exam with you. We'll get into the reference material in just a moment, but no electronics, no smart watches, no cell phones, no battery, no cameras, things like that. Even eyeglasses, they'll check these real careful, make sure there's nothing funny about them, no clips, pins or anything like that. Loose clothing. They can even have you take your pockets inside out. So just keep that in mind and be prepared. No hats, headgear, anything like that. So when you get there, if they ask you to do that, don't feel like they're doing something bad. That's just what they do. Some places, some testing facilities are much more regimented and strict about that than others. So, all right, let's scroll on down here. Let's talk about ID. Got to have 2 forms of ID. One of them needs to be a state issued license, driver's license, something like that, with your name, your picture on it, and then a secondary. So just make sure you have all that stuff together. You don't want to be trying to do all this on test day. Test day, we want as less stress as possible. So just be prepared with all of that. All right, moving on to the next page. Once your exam starts, you're going to walk, typically you'll walk through a set of double doors or a door, big glass on each side where they can watch you take the exam. You'll be in there with landscapers, with nurses, with everybody taking all sorts of kind of exams. Some of these exams are long, 5.5 hours. You need to go to take a break, a restroom break or whatever. Sometimes they'll pause the test for you, sometimes they won't, okay? Make sure you ask that before you start your exam so you know for certain. You don't want to be stressed out about something like that. So, but you do have the ability to get up and say, hey, look, I need to take a restroom break. A lot of times they'll ask you to hand you your license while you're doing that. They just want to keep track of who's coming and who's going and how long you've been gone. They don't want you running down to your truck, pulling up Google on your cell phone to get an answer is what they're trying to prevent. So just work with them, make sure you understand what they're looking for, and not get sideways with the proctors when you're taking one of these exams. Almost every test will have what they call experimental questions. These are questions that don't count for you or against you. So if you're expecting 50 questions and there's 51 or 2 or 3, even up to 60, they can add 10 extra ones. Those are fake questions, okay? Now they're not in any order, they could be anywhere. So just keep that in mind, that if you have more than you were expecting, that's what you've encountered. If you go through our training, we'll show you some tips on being able to capitalize on some of those beta questions, as we call them. But anyway, just know that that is a possibility. The next we're going to move into the candidate bulletin is scoring. Most important thing, hey, what do we got to have to pass? Most states do not actually issue you a score, a number score, unless you fail. So a lot of times I tell people, you don't want to score, you just want to pass, right? Georgia, in this case, they're saying, hey, 70% to pass. Okay, great. Scrolling on down, I'll give you a little information on some sample questions. Now we're actually going to get into the test itself. So the first one is the business and law. Every state, almost every state, will require a separate business and law. So the business and law exam, in this case for Georgia, is 50 questions. You can see it's got a 70% to pass. That's a 2-hour time limit. That's pretty typical of most business and laws. So it shows you a little bit of how that is made up as far as weighted subjects. You'll see that on most of these candidate bulletins as well. They're telling you, hey, this is an open book, and you get to bring this specific book in. In this case, it's a single book. All your material can be highlighted, tabbed, and underlined. You'll see that over here. This material will not be there. You have to bring it yourself, okay? So your books can be highlighted, tabbed, and underlined. While I'm thinking about it on these tabs, they have to be permanent tabs. You can see that right here. No post-it notes or anything like that. So make sure the tabs that you're using, if you get them from us, they're going to be permanent. Make sure you use permanent tabs if you do decide to add tabs to your books. Real quick, this is what the trade exam actually looks like. How it's made up. 80 questions in this case, 70% to pass, 56 questions, got to get right, 200 minutes. And again, it tells you how the test is weighted from what subject matter. You can't necessarily say, oh, I'm only going to answer this many questions out of that book. They don't break it down to that level, except for OSHA. In this case, they say, hey, you're going to get 7 questions out of OSHA. You'll get 7 questions. So you can see the books that you can actually bring in here. Again, open book exam, you need to bring them in, okay? You'll see the same thing repeated with the residential light and then the books and all that, and again with the NASCLA if you're doing that. One other final thing we get a couple questions on, PSI will typically issue you some plans. These will be plans that they'll ask you questions out of during the exam. So just keep that in mind. They will supply those. You don't have to bring them yourself. Beyond that, just know what your candidate bulletin will and will not allow you to do. When you check in, they'll go through your books to make sure there's nothing funny or freaky about them or anything like that. But if you have any questions about what you can, what's allowed or whatever, you're welcome to give us a call at My Contractor's License. We'll be glad to help you with that. Again, my name is Ron, and here's your testing tip for the day. Take care.